Okay, here's our video on quadrilaterals. So what is a quadrilateral? Well, look, quadrilateral has four sides, like a square and a rhombus, and we'll go over those. And the total degrees of a quadrilateral is 360 degrees. So remember when we did triangles, the total degree of a triangle was 180 degrees. But when we have a quadrilateral, no matter what it is, a rectangle or a square, the total is 360. And you can see if we take a square or a rectangle and we cut it in half, we have two triangles. And each triangle is 180. And 180 plus 180 is 360. So quadrilaterals, they have four sides. Okay, so and we'll go over the types of quadrilaterals, but let's make sure we understand a vocabulary word first. Congruent. So congruent means the same shape and the same size. So you can see that these two figures are not congruent. They may be the same shape, but they're not the same size. So again, congruent, same shape and same size. So if I had a square, little square here, and if I wanted a congruent square, they have to be the same shape and same size. So roughly, when we're drawing it here without a ruler, looks like we have the same shape and same size, so they're congruent. So that's congruent. So let's go over the types of quadrilaterals. So the first one we'll talk about is a parallelogram. And a parallelogram has two pairs of parallel sides and two pairs of congruent, here's that word again, congruent, same shape, same size, angles, opposite each other. So what does that mean? So, a parallelogram basically looks like a slanted rectangle. So here's our parallelogram. So it has two pairs of parallel sides. So here's one pair of parallel sides, and here's another pair of parallel sides. Okay, so we have two pairs here and two pairs here. And it has congruent angles. So these angles, this angle here and this angle here, are opposite each other, and they're congruent. So this angle and this angle have the same degree. And this angle and this angle have the same degree because they're opposite each other. So that's a parallelogram. Okay, let's make sure we understand what parallel means. So if we have two straight lines, completely straight, two parallel lines, they could be any direction, they're running the same direction, parallel lines will never cross each other. So these two lines, right, these two lines here are parallel to each other. They'll keep going in either direction and never cross. And you can have parallel lines this way. As long as they're completely straight lines, they're parallel to each other, right? And they don't have to be that way. They can also look like they can go this way. So those are parallel lines. So in a parallelogram, again, it looks like a slanted square or rectangle. Fix that a little. There we go. Do you remember the definition? So they have to have two parallel sides, two pairs. Here's one pair, and here's the other pair. So that's a parallelogram. That's one of the definitions. And their angles opposite each other. The angles opposite each other have to be congruent. Okay, so let's say, for example, this was 50 degrees. Well, then this angle has to be 50 degrees. They're opposite each other. So that's the parallelogram. And the thing about parallelograms, which may be a little confusing at first, but parallelograms are parallelograms, which I just went over. They're also rectangles, rhombuses, and squares. And I'll go over that. There is a hierarchy when we're talking about quadrilaterals. But let's look at the next one. It's a rectangle, and we're familiar with rectangles. So it has two pairs of equal sides. Two pairs of equal sides. So here's a rectangle. And it has four right angles. And we know we use that box for right angles. They're 90-degree angles. It has four of them. Looks like a square, but a square has all four sides are equal. In a rectangle, two pairs are equal. right? This could be, let's say, 10 inches or 10 centimeters or 10 units. And this could be 5. So, and it has the 4 right angles. So that's a rectangle. Then we have a rhombus. So a rhombus looks like a square. It has 4 equal sides, just like a square, but it is slanted. But all 4 sides have to be equal. So if that's 5, this has to be 5, that has to be 5, that has to be 5. Right? So that's one definition of a rhombus. All 4 sides are equal. And 2 pairs of congruent angles. Okay, so just like the parallelogram, the angles opposite each other have to be equal. If this was 50 degrees, then this has to be 50 degrees right here. And of course we have the square. The square has 4 equal sides, just like a rhombus, but it has 4 right angles. And all sides are equal, so everything. And we use that little box to indicate right angles, all 90 degrees. Now, there's another quadrilateral that's different than the rest. It's a trapezoid. A trapezoid has 1 pair of parallel sides. So this is a regular trapezoid. This is what a regular trapezoid looks like. The one we'll use for now. So here's a parallel sides. Here's 1 parallel side. It only has 1 pair. It doesn't have 2 pairs. The others are not parallel to each other. That's our trapezoid. So again, we can draw the shapes. We have our parallelogram, which is the top of the hierarchy, and the hierarchy is an order. Right? And then we have our rectangle. You can see here. And all these are quadrilaterals. Then we have our rhombus. Looks like this. And move that up, and of course we have our square last. If you can see that. Parallelogram, rectangle, rhombus, and square. And the trapezoid we'll put on another side. There's our trapezoid. Now there's one more type of quadrilateral. Does anyone know what it may be? Well, it could be a diamond. But it's a kite. What about a kite? Now a kite's also a quadrilateral. Not including the tail here. Now some kites can be squares. Right? Just a square that's kind of up tilted a little, right? That's a square. But it could be a kite. Has 4 right angles, and all sides are the same. So a kite can be a square. Kite can also be a rhombus, right? We can make a kite out of a rhombus where all sides are equal, but they don't have 90-degree angles, so a kite can be a rhombus. But sometimes you get a kite like this, and it's just a kite. And sometimes we call kites deltoids. So I'll write that down, deltoids. Sometimes they're called deltoids. And deltoids, we're not talking about shoulders, because the delts are your shoulders. But so a kite can be a square, it could be a rhombus, or sometimes it's just a kite. Because you see here, the way it's shaped, it's not a rhombus, because they don't have equal sides. This could be 5, this could be 5, but this could be 8, and this could be 8. So it's not a rhombus or a square. It's just a kite. So we listed all our quadrilaterals. And in part 2, we'll talk about the hierarchy of the quadrilaterals. Great job.